Listen up, everyone. If you have ever heard the word parental alienation, I want to introduce to you an expert on the subject today. It's Lisa Goodpaster. She has a wealth of information here. So I just want to introduce you. Hello, Lisa. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to be here.
Well, tell me how you kind of got involved in this work, because I know like a lot of us kind of have our own story, and I don't expect you to get into like specifics, but people get in this work for a reason, and I'm just really interested in your story.
Uh, I'm not a alienated parent or targeted parent. I am actually a child who grew up to actually prove my own alienation. And I wrote a book because I had the evidence, and I wanted to give parents and professionals and anyone else, even kids out there, um, you're not alone. A lot of parents don't understand what goes on for the kids, and what they're missing is a massive component. So that is why I am here.
Well, gosh, as a child growing up through, difficult situations and then having these different lessons, the thing is you wonder why there wasn't a system put in place, to protect you. And what are some of these experiences that you had a child that just kind of lived through what you experience today?
You mean like what was it like for me as a child? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Growing up. Well, you know, my biggest my most important message is that the courts have left out the nervous system, the child's nervous system, and this is huge because what it was like for me growing up may be what it's like for many of your kids. And while I hear parents and professionals explain as fact what it's like, they have it so wrong. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah, so what's that like?
Well, you, I imagine like what it feels like when a parent gets served with divorce papers and they hear all those horrible things. They're like, this isn't true. This isn't true. So that's what it feels like from this side. But when you're a kid, you don't know what's happening in the sense of, say, seven, right? At seven, I was adapting. Adapting sounds like positive, and I suppose it can be depending on how you adapt. But adapting comes from the nervous system. Our nervous system is meant to scan for safety, emotional safety. So when you're little, your nervous system and your mind and body are growing so fast. There's no time to think. So when parents go through a divorce, um, so in my case, I don't remember, like they'll say, oh, kids will they'll map that they're mapping everything. They're trying to, they're looking at tone and all those things. Yes, but you don't recognize that. You don't know it. It happens so fast. It is
Mm.
not like when they say that kids automatic they're rejecting a parent because of what the other parent is saying. No, not at first. No, it's automatic. Um, so it feels very uncomfortable on the inside. And let's just say at seven, being dropped off from one parent to the other, it was so uncomfortable because I didn't want to say goodbye to one parent. And I was already, I had a different, the way I felt about one parent wasn't, it was more of a emotional relationship. I felt like emotionally, and I didn't know what emotionally meant. So you're growing up on the outside. Parents don't know what's going on the inside. So the best way I can do this is give you guys an example. This was before the there was already like before your kids get to court, before they even get to therapy, they've already been adapting. That means on the outside they're behaving one way, but on the inside they could be feeling something completely different, like myself. Um, I'm on a weekend with one parent, and my mom says, let's I'm gonna take you ice skating for your birthday. We're gonna have a big party there. But before we do this, I'm gonna let you go pick out an outfit, like a skating rink outfit. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That should be fun. You know, you're 8 or 9 years old, and all I can think was, oh my God, I gotta hurry up. I gotta pick the first thing because I don't want my mom to take it back. That's what I was feeling on the outside. Not, this is so exciting. She didn't know that. So there was this rush. Let me get this. That way I don't cause anybody any anger. I don't have her change her mind. And so on the outside, I am uh, not taking my time. Ooh, look at this. What about this, mom? No. And so that was the first sign. And you would think that I would know that. Like I would know, like, why am I taking my time? Why am I like, or not taking my time, but why am I in such a rush? Because my nervous system had already been logging, recording like that. There is no thinking involved. When you're 13, it's too late. I was pissed because I couldn't, and I didn't know it because kids don't know this. And this is why it's so important for parents. When kids are put in situations where there's an emotional environment, home, before, parents fighting, we automatically start adapting. We are not the body, the mind, like, oh, this is uncomfortable. You got to do something because that's what the body and mind do.
Wow, and that just sounds terrifying because it's like, what type of situation today do I need to adapt to so that I feel loved, supportive?
You're
And so
doing
I,
all of that to feel attached. You don't know that you're supposed to be attached to your parent. It's you don't know that like some of the things I would override my own internal feelings. Like this doesn't feel right. Why am I doing this? So there's always a discomfort with these reactions or adaptations. I'm really good with I guess it's easier to explain in stories than it is like in an intellectual way because it doesn't make sense. Uh
I'm a storyteller too, so
okay, good. So any
or
of the
teach my
parents,
metaphors, so that's
and this
challenging
can,
for
and this
people
doesn't have to do with
sometimes.
this can be all around. It could be a parent, it could be a step parent.
Yeah.
Um so I was alienated. Well, my dad didn't know to the extent, but my stepmom was the big player here.
Mm.
Uh and for whatever reasons, it's not even bothering explaining. I don't even want to waste my time. But this adult was so bad. And when adults start talking about, especially step parents, or even they say, we don't talk bad about the ex. I don't care if you don't talk bad. What emotional environment, what's going on in the house? Because here's what happens. I think I had to be under 10. And I didn't like my stepmom. I didn't like her, but I had to tolerate her. I
Mm.
didn't know that. I didn't even know I had a choice, right? Because, dad's like, oh, I'm happy. Parents put their own BS on their kids. So I remember always like I wanted to be part of the pack. Even though I didn't like her, I wanted to be a part of the pack. I wanted to belong.
Mhm.
So even though I did not like this lady, I would find myself tolerating her BS real time. And this is, you got to think about it. One day, it's not just one time you're adapting throughout your childhood. That's just, it is what it is. And depending on what you're adapting around. So I can remember thinking, ooh, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. That was my attachment system needing to belong, not my pathology of having a split personality. Are you kidding me? So the things that is out there is so backwards. It is why we are still in this situation. It is why parents can't reconnect, why they struggle. Um, and it's all, and when you think about the family court system and you think about how emotional that is, so you're going to put a kid back into that emotional space. They've already been adapting. They've already are tired of this shit. And Now you're going to observe their behavior, but not understand the nervous system, not understand the science, the biology.
Mm.
They mess up big time.
Well, yeah, and I think when many people think of abuse, they think of just the physical scars, but the emotional toll that language can have, decisions can have, uh, influencers that you
Think you know
associate
something, they
with.
know a little bit, and they're out there, and they're healing from their own stuff,
Yeah.
and they're putting information out there that is so. Um, Here's the thing: you cannot take a kid from like a divorce situation, high conflict, put them in family court, have them go and testify, have them go be observed by psychologists, by attorneys. They're addicting if they're not already in survival mode. So basically, what's happening is you're raising your kids to have an insecure attachment to both parents. Parents will tell me all the time, "Oh no, when my husband's kids are here, we make sure we don't talk bad about the parents. We do everything different." Yeah, but that's their outside. That makes you feel better. What about their inside? Because if they're still
Mm,
in their room, if they're still like tiptoeing, if they're telling, they can tell you because that's what we do, right? If I act this way, I get love and support from dad. If I act this way, then I get love and support from mom.
mm.
So a kid is growing up to satisfy the emotional environment for the adults. That is the opposite of parenting.
So there had to be come a point, right? And maybe it's when you moved away,
Oh yeah.
that you started to realize these kind of signals or triggers and kind of so like at what point did you like start to really like identify these and start to add some language or labels to some of the things that were happening around you?
Oh well, I was always trying to figure this out. I was always trying to I was always like noticing, wow, that's wrong. Like on the outside, I may like just shook my head, but on the inside, I'm like, that's freaking bullshit. I will never do that. So what I did was you kind of grow up rebelling from everything that didn't serve you, that didn't feel good on the inside. And I got
Mm,
away. And getting away was huge because I got to experience um, life, right? I became a flight attendant. So you come in with all those, uh, I suppose, survival patterns or skills, and I would only was refining them in the airline industry. That's when they say, "Oh, black and white thinking." I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's good for safety. Try not to do that on an airplane." So I think it's hard for parents to like because they're so used to labels, and I'm more like, "No, your kids are not labels. That's their behavior." So I started to figure this out throughout my life. I was always like noticing. You got to realize too, I was raising a son, and so when you're raising a kid, I mean, from what I've experienced, we either want to replicate what our parents did or we don't want to do things differently, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, it's
a
true.
lot of it was like and it was automatic. Like I would I would automatically know not to put those situations that were put on me. It was just like, yep, no, not that. Like I knew to be present. I knew to not put emotional stuff on my son.
Yeah.
Um, So I suppose that's when it was, but it wasn't until when I found the script, when I found out what had really happened. And then it was like, through 7 years of, on and off therapy, somatic therapy. And then you becomes like that's why I did that. Ah. And so there's relief in that where you hear online, oh my God, and the kids, they suffer for years. That's a choice.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're putting somebody else in that position based upon, your own choices. So I'm thinking as far as what kids need today with there being conflict everywhere, especially, even the games that they're playing, the computers that they have, the unsupervised YouTube. Like what mindful advice can you give to parents so that you hope that they can model some of those positive behaviors, knowing that there's just so many bad examples out there?
I think parents are, they love their kids for all the right reasons, but they get all the advice from people that want to study it. How can you study? I think parents aren't listening to their kids. I think they're too busy wondering if they're doing something right or doing something wrong. It's about parents really, being a parent is sacrificial. Um, it's knowing, are you doing this for you? Or are you doing this for the kid?
Mm,
Because yeah, we can blame YouTube, we can blame all our society that's always growing. We can blame this, we can blame that. But what are you being an example of? What are your daily, like what is your kid seeing when they see you? Are they seeing you stress or seeing you complain? Uh, because kids, especially that are living in, high conflict situations, they just look at you and go, nope, not dealing with it. Or, oh, there goes mom again talking about dad. Or, and I I know the cost of what it feels like when you're a kid and you don't have the words to explain.
yeah,
So, and that is one of the biggest reasons why I am here, because there is nothing worse when there are adults around you trying to dissect you, trying to figure you out, but yet they don't look at the adults and the environment in which you are growing up in. So if a kid is always on YouTube, okay, why is he always on YouTube? Well, what happened? What's going on that he wants to be on YouTube? He doesn't want to hang out with dad or mom. So there's all, and of course there's the natural, like, like now I'm getting older now, but you know, um, parents don't realize because they want it, they want the validation of, no, I'm right, they're wrong. Uh, there was a mom that was really upset. She put up texts of, because all the kids are starting to graduate. I don't want you at my graduation, right? That's a big one. And people, look what the X is doing. Look what the X is doing. And I look at that text and I'm like, nah, that kid's smart. She's just laying it out. I don't want you here because of this. You can do this. And the mom just loses her shit. And I'm just like, they don't get it. They don't get that high school,
hmm
that senior can't think
hmm
for themselves. What that kid is doing is trying to control the emotional environment, not rejecting mom. Because obviously, if you're going and you're telling your kid, but I love you and this is, I was there for you, this is my right, you're putting emotional BS. So your kid's got to now take back. The kid becomes the parent, and then the kid isn't even seen like that. The kid is like, nope, it's the ex, it's my ex, what they're doing. And it's like, kid has no choice. You're leaving your kids with no choice. So my honest, hardcore, and I know it's hard. I get it. Stop putting the kids in your emotional BS. That isn't parenting. That's neglect.
Wow. Wow, Lisa. Well, you have a tremendous amount of resources that you have. Would you mind sharing with others that how people can kind of work through some of the processes that you've gone through?
Well, I have a book. It's called Alienated When Parents Won't Parent. And I have a website called the stephoodproject.org. And uh, that's dedicated to helping kids and parents understand the child's perspective, as well as I have an AI agent called AI Lisa. I'm getting ready to launch her, but that is a 24/7 access for parents and professionals to get the information, the correct science backed information on what it's like to grow up alienated, this type of trauma, so that you don't have to chase down all the negativity, all the things that they have gotten wrong. Because every single thing that parent has been, and I don't want to say every single thing, but the majority of what parents have been told has come from an adversarial family court. And all they're doing is flooding it more and more and more. And when you forget the nervous system, because the mind and body work together, you only get half the story. And it's really important to understand. And there's way more information. But what happens is the body remembers, right? The body logs and records, and the mind makes sense of it later. So when you've got kids that have aged out of the system, and a lot of parents struggle with this because kids will look, kids don't, it's unnatural. We can love our parent, but we can still suffer from a insecure attachment. So all of this information is available from in my book as well as in throughout, you can just look on my socials, and you can find videos. I do have a section for parents, so it kind of gives them, a sense of what it may be like for your kids, because parents, you don't repair your relationship with labels. You repair them with understanding. And I think that's the biggest message is, are you sure that you really understand your kids through the labels? There's no way.
Wow. Wow, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. And I know anybody who's listening to this too, I think it's rare that we hear from the child's side and kind of what they've experienced because, like the last thing we want to do is create this intergenerational trauma. And if we can't manage the existing family caseload, then what is our society going to end up, in another couple of years? It's frightening.
Right. That's why it's the way that the court system and the way that everything is, it's so they say it's child first, the best interest, but it's complete opposite. And it's because of the way that, I'm not here saying that the system should be shut down. I'm saying, hey, parents, you love your kids this much, you're fighting this much, all you're doing is raising your kids, and you're on the outside, we're saying one thing, but on the inside we don't feel safe. And parents, why don't you feel safe? Because emotionally we don't feel safe, and if you don't feel safe emotionally, you don't feel safe. Can't go to dad and say, I don't want to go with you tonight, dad, because I really want to be with mom. And then dad's like, see, and then it's like 50-50. You guys are all forcing kids to live around your emotional stuff without considering the whole picture. Kids aren't going to be 7 forever. They're not going to be 15 forever. And the biggest thing is, stop saying that the kids are damaged. What I see as damage is a bunch of parents that don't want to do their job, that rather go through the system and waste all this money while continuing to put their kids in an emotional environment because they're pissed off at their ex, because that's how the kids see it. It's like, it's about the parents. You see the mother's rights, the father's rights. Nothing's about the kids. They'll stand by it. And most kids don't come out because they're smart. It's not easy. You're going against, um, and I'm not going against anywhere. I'm trying to say, hey, stop. One of the questions was, what's my advice to professionals, gals, attorneys, judges? Uh, stop. Stop right now until you understand the full picture. Nobody should be making decisions on the best interest of a child. What they've been doing is they've been starting in the middle. So it's like, you're going to go have surgery, right? But the doctor's like, yeah, I'm not going to take the test. I'm not going to take a blood work. You're not going to do an EKG. We're just going to start right here. Whoa.
Look, it's so crazy.
Whoa. And then don't even get me started on social media. Every single step parent, and I hope you're listening. I'm sorry. Stop speaking about alienated kids. You are not helping the dad and the mom, the relationship. Everyone that has not actually lived this as a child, stop. Because there's so many kids that reach out to me. I don't identify with that. I'm like, I don't even want to identify with it.
And what do
And
you mean by that with this? What do you mean by that with a
there's
step parent?
step parents or advocates that continue. Oh my God, you should put a camera on me and go, God, they did that. Oh God. Oh, the kid was going to grow up and they're going to have all these. And I'm not saying that, that's not a struggle, but it's almost like, do you need the kids to be so effed up because it helps your perception of your ex? Solid question. Like, there's no way, and this is the hard truth. There's no way I would have ever repaired my relationship with my mom had she used all the technology and all the things that are used out there. No way, especially at my age. No way. So, this isn't about picking on parents. This is like, you guys are being used. And I think you know it. But you're being used in a way where you're allowing other people that don't know your kids. And your kids have been adapting since you've first been fighting every day. And if they're not sharing how they feel on the inside, that's a that's an insecure attachment. They're hiding in their rooms, if they're it doesn't mean that you can still love your parent and have an insecure attachment, but there's a lack of respect, a lack of, or I want to say respect, disappointment. So they're growing up watching you, but if they don't, and if you're putting them in these emotional, and that's what's dangerous for the professionals who to not understand that the nervous system, to not understand what adaptation is, and to make behaviors as evidence, because that's what's used, and to use that evidence to make a decision is the biggest oversight. And every parent should be working together instead of fighting each other. Because not only the danger is that is, well, now you're putting this identity on this child. This child hasn't even been growing up yet. Be very wary of every, and I get these behaviors are loud. I get why parents would see that, but they're a signal. Because, yeah, it is unnatural to lose a secure attachment to a parent. So there's a lot. And then you've got different ages. So the biggest mistake is focusing on the behavior and never learning or understanding about the nervous system. And if you're going to go back and try to do that, as a parent,
Yeah.
I would never let anyone. And because that's what, and your kids are watching. You know what it's like to see your parents. You have to go to someone like a counselor or a court ordered therapy. Do you know what that is like? You're thinking, oh, this is stupid. I don't want to be here. I'm so upset. And you're not sharing this information. And none of these experts say, you know what? Why don't you it's okay to have a good relationship with both your parents. That's what I want to see you. They don't do that. They want to know, they're looking for the behaviors, for the diagnosis, that that surgery that they never did the right information for. That's not going to turn out very well. It's a big, big issue. So that's hard. And I know most of the professionals in this space, they're only working with the information. They're working in a system that does not serve children. There's no way. There's no way. So I don't care what they say. If you're putting, even to have to go to court, kids shouldn't even have to go to court. Divorce should be separate. Handle that other stuff somewhere else. And this is where we're at.
My gosh. And it's interesting because we're at 2026 and we think we would have figured this out by now with all of the different technology and solutions. But I think it's just going to take us one conversation at a time. It's going to take one event at a time to really like share what children are doing. And Lisa, I'm so grateful that you were able to join us today on the podcast to talk about this. It's very courageous of you to do that. And I know that the strength that you have for others will only give them confidence as they start to approach some of these difficult situations. So,
Because at the end of the day, if this is a relationship issue with your parents, it's not about mom's or dad's personalities. They didn't make your parents take a personality before they had you. Why does it matter now? It's absolutely ludicrous, and it's only separating that attachment, and that is a hell of a way to never have to. No kid should have to grow up this way. And fortunately, I am Latina, and I have a big family, and I was not alienated from my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, and not that that replaced how I was growing up with my parents. It was a soft space to land. The kids that don't have that, that's scary. That's why kids get into gangs. That's why they're doing the things that they need to do because it's hard to escape.
Yeah. Well, you can't escape your message. This is available on Amazon Kindle, right? And the resources will be available for everybody else after the podcast. So thanks again, Lisa. Have a great day.